Chapter 323. Just as I expected, the minor blood demon body separating great art and burning Jinyuan cancel each other out, only increasing my battling power by 20%. The burning of Zhen Yuan was too powerful, and even the minor blood demon body separating great art could not compete with it. Before, it could increase his battling power by 50%, but now, it had only increased by 20%. Plus, the burning speed of his qi and blood was even faster than before, which would not last long. If he had guessed it right, as his cultivation increased, the power of burning Zhen Yuan would increase, and the minor blood demon body separating great art would eventually be eliminated. Of course, under the condition of burning Zhen Yuan, being able to increase his battling power by 20% was already very shocking. It was even 20% more powerful than astral-reaching realm warriors, who trained fire element Zhen Yuan. Whoosh! The blue-red Zhen Yuan flame burned brightly as Yi Chen lifted up his head and looked at the corpse man. The corner of the corpse man's eyes twitched. This brat had trained the blood demon's minor blood demon body separating great art. He did not know how the blood demon had given out his own secret martial art and given it to someone else. Take one of my attacks first. A ghostly wailing sound came from the golden skull as the corpse man took a step forward. It was as if a demon had arrived, attacking towards Yi Chen's head. A green lotus flower seizing art blocked out the corpse man's attack. Yi Chen waved his left hand, and two beams of green lotus sword qi shot out, attacking towards the corpse man's throat and heart. Pooh! The eagle claw-like left hand sliced open the sword qi, while the other beam of sword qi drew a beautiful arc in the air and brushed past the corpse man's chest, bringing up a small piece of disgusting flesh. Damn! Corpse fire! The corpse man was furious. As the golden skull shook, two balls of gray flame shot out, sticking onto Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan. This flame is not simple. The gray flame had a strong corrosive power. It did not go out even after touching the Zhen Yuan flame. Instead, it started to corrode Yi Chen's body. Without a choice, Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan exploded, shooting out both his protective Zhen Yuan and corpse fire, killing dozens of bronze shell corpses. The corpse man was caught off guard and was hit by that Zhen Yuan. He backed out 4 or 5 steps, his gray protective Zhen Yuan shaking. In corpse drill, stopping himself from backing out. The corpse man's 5 fingers on his left hand formed into an awl shape, with 5 hard black nails at the front. Around those nails, a gray-black Zhen Yuan started to spin intensely, forming into a gray-black Zhen Yuan drill. He then tried to drill towards Yi Chen. Xiao! The sound of breaking air was extremely soft. In the blink of an eye, the Zhen Yuan drill had arrived in front of Yi Chen. So fast! Quick sword intent burst out as Yi Chen blocked the Zhen Yuan drill with his sword. Whoosh! Whoosh! Blazing sparks scattered in all directions. The true essence drill gradually lost its momentum and dispersed. Seizing the opportunity, the gold skull flew out of the corpse man's hand and into the air. Spheres of gray flame spread out like a rain of fire. Shadow explosion. Dozens of shadows exploded. Yi Chen's real body quickly left the area covered by the rain of fire. Most of the shadows were ignited by the corpse fire and disappeared. This kid is too hard to deal with. I have to kill him to avoid future troubles. After fighting for so long, the corpse man had almost used all of his power. Not only did he not manage to hurt Yi Chen, he had even lost a small piece of his flesh. Although he was a zombie warrior, and a little bit of flesh was nothing to him. As one of the 108 ghost warriors of the 9 Ghosts cult, he had dominated the Windy Nation for dozens of years. There were at least dozens of astral-reaching realm warriors who had died in his hands. He had never been taken advantage of by a young warrior. The anger in his heart was gradually ignited, and a creepy green color appeared in his black eyes. Ghost roar art. Opening his stinky mouth, the corpse man pushed his Zhen Yuan and formed an illusory skull in his throat. As the skull opened its mouth, a horrifying sound wave burst out. The sound wave had a faint gray-black color, spreading out in the shape of a wave. All of a sudden, the dark underground world was filled with screams and screams, as if hell had reappeared. What a powerful sound wave art! Yi Chen pushed his Zhen Yuan as hard as he could, protecting his mind and ears. However, the sound wave was not just a simple sound. It also contained a power that was hard to defend against. Pooh! Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth as Yi Chen staggered backward. The others were not as lucky as him. The sound wave had pierced through their ears, making them all bleed out of their orifices. They looked like they were in pain, especially Pang Nia. Since he had lost an arm to the corpse man earlier, he was badly wounded, being shaken by the sound wave. The Zhen Yuan inside his body could no longer be suppressed. It rushed up, and he puked out a stream of blood. He had almost been killed by his own Zhen Yuan. The lake man was shocked. The corpse man had used his ghost roar art, which consumed a lot of Zhen Yuan. According to what he knew, the ghost roar art was one of the 108 ghost warriors of the Nine Ghosts cult, which was just as famous as the blood demon. With one roar, it could kill a huge amount of weaker opponents. Even warriors at the same level would have to back out, unable to compete with it. That brat was surprisingly powerful, forcing the corpse man to use his ghost roar art, which he was not that familiar with yet. Kill Heart Sword. Seeing that the corpse man was going to perform his ghost roar art, Yi Chen's face turned cold. He held his star scar sword with both of his hands and sank his mind into it, throwing out an attack along with his 80% sword intent. The sword chi was like a pillar, fast like lightning. Crack! The corpse man forcefully released his ghost roar art, his gold skull blocking in front of the sword chi. Shoo! Sparks shot out in a fan shape. The corpse man's blocking was a bit slow after all. The gold skull had only brushed against the sword chi, missing its target. The next second, a bone-deep sword mark appeared on his shoulder. He had almost lost one of his good arms, which was not a small loss. How is this possible? Although my ghost roar art is not that good yet, even a late astral-reaching realm warrior would have their chi and blood boiled under this roar. They would not be able to fight back immediately. The corpse man could tell that Yi Chen was wounded. However, the biggest use of his ghost roar art was actually to weaken his opponent's condition, allowing him to gain the upper hand. Yi Chen frowned slightly. The corpse man's sound wave art was indeed out of his expectation. The good thing was that he had trained the Green Lotus Sword spell, and it had already reached the 13th realm. Although his Zhen Yuan did not seem to be as rich as his opponents, it was actually slightly better in terms of purity. Besides that, the corpse man's ghost roar art was not that good, and had a lot of flaws. Otherwise, the situation would be even more dangerous, since both of them were at the same power level. The two were in a stalemate, neither of them willing to attack first. Meanwhile, the battle between Xiao Heng and his wife was still going on. Because Pang Nia could no longer fight, the couple and Lin Shuihan were slowly falling into a disadvantage. They were being suppressed by the lake man, the two gold shell corpses, and a man in long robes. Let's fight together. Xiao Heng signaled Long Yu. Yeah. Long Yu nodded. A water-like water Jin Yuan rushed out of her body, which looked extremely heavy. A pinky-sized drop of Zhen Yuan landed on the ground, immediately creating a small deep hole. At this moment, the 8th grade zombie Metal Elite Zombie stomped on the ground and rushed towards the two. Big Water Wave Dragon Break Art. Two loud yells were heard. Xiao Heng and Long Yu's Water Jin Qi combined together, performing an extremely horrifying secret skill. In the middle of the raging waves, a huge dragon that was completely made of water Zhen Yuan broke through the waves. The huge dragon shook its head and tail, and an ancient aura spread out in the air. Oh no! It is the secret skill of the dragon god's celestial palace. The lake man's expression suddenly turned dark. Boom! The rank 8 gold shell corpse was even more powerful than a peak-level mid-astral reaching realm warrior. However, the huge dragon made of water Jin Yuan was even more powerful. With a wave of the dragon's claw, it had been blown away immediately. It was like a broken bag being blown away by a defenseless kid. Owa! The huge dragon roared into the sky, attacking towards the lake man and the others. Blue wave spell. Cloud-piercing attack. The lake man drew a circle with his left hand while his right hand shot out. It was also a huge wave, but the difference was that there was a long spear made of water Zhen Yuan shooting out towards the huge dragon. The huge dragon and the long spear clashed, and the lake man was completely defeated. The huge dragon and the long spear had lost one of its right claws, and the long spear had been shattered. When Xiao Heng and his wife performed that horrifying secret skill, even the ghost corpse man might not be able to handle it, not to mention the lake man who was only at mid-astral reaching realm. The huge dragon's tail swept over, forcing the lake man to puke out a mouthful of blood. He had no way of fighting back at all. The other gold shell corpse next to him had also been blown away. As for that man in long robes, there were two of them. Seeing that the situation was not right, they did not try to fight against the huge dragon at all. Instead, they took the chance when the lake man was about to fight back and flew to the right. Xiao Heng and his wife knew that they could not afford to lose this opportunity. This secret skill was extremely hard for them to perform. Once their Zhen Yuan could not keep up, the huge dragon would disappear. Therefore, they planned to kill the lake man and the others while they still had enough Zhen Yuan, not giving them the chance to fight back. Evil corpse drill. The ghost corpse man had caught up. He threw out an evil corpse drill with his left hand, while his right hand held the gold skull, and threw it towards the huge dragon. He yelled, "Everyone retreat!" The huge dragon had been shattered, and the ghost corpse man backed out for dozens of steps. The lake man's face was pale, and he was badly wounded. However, even in this kind of situation, he still stared at Long Yu with evil intentions. He then looked at Yi Chun, who was at the peak of his power. Right then, the situation was completely out of control. The ghost corpse man could not do anything to that brat, so staying here would only put him in danger. Let's go. The lake man and the man in long robes decided to retreat first. As for the two gold shell corpses, they would only listen to the ghost corpse man, so they did not have to worry about them. Ghost smoke. Staring at Yi Chun, who had caught up to him, the corpse man threw out 3 black pellets. The pellets exploded, and an endless amount of black smoke spread out. Leave something behind before you leave. The black smoke could not block out Yi Chun's soul power. He waved his star scar sword, and a fist-sized green lotus pierced through the smoke, landing on the ghost corpse man's left arm. The whole left arm fell off. The ghost corpse man screamed as he walked further and further away. His evil voice lingered in the smoke. "Brat, wait for me to come back. It will be your death day. No one will be able to save you." Yi Chun did not plan to chase after him. Before, he had noticed that the ghost corpse man's wound had already been healed. Although he had lost an arm, neither of them had prepared for a battle of life and death. He knew that the ghost corpse man must have left some horrifying ace attacks behind. Yi Chun sneered. "If you don't come back, you might still have a chance to live. If you come back, you will only die faster." Right now he had just reached the astral reaching realm, so his foundation was not very stable. Once he stabilized his cultivation, he would go to the natural moat gorge to learn the Battle King's sword intent. Not to mention the ghost corpse man, even Jin Huang would not be able to kill him. Chapter 324. Once the corpse man had left, Xiao Heng and his wife let out a breath of relief. Although they had prepared for everything before they came, it was still quite hard to face him. Even the big water wave dragon break art might not be able to do anything to him. Luckily, Yi Chun was very powerful. He had managed to block the corpse man all by himself, and had gained quite the upper hand. Otherwise, it would not be the corpse man who had backed out, but them. "Warrior Yi, no wonder the leader thinks so highly of you." Long Yu looked at Yi Chun. "This old monster is not simple. If we keep fighting, the result will be unpredictable." As they were talking, Yi Chun released his minor blood demon body separating great art, and put out the burning Jin Yuan. He then let out a mouthful of turbid qi, which was slightly hot, and filled with the smell of blood. The minor blood demon body separating great art consumed a lot of qi and blood, which was a huge burden on the body. Even though Yi Chun had been trained by the sky demon flower, and had just reached the astral reaching realm, his body was way more powerful than other astral reaching realm warriors at the same level. However, burning Jin Yuan was different. It was something that all astral reaching realm warriors would try their best to avoid. Unless it was a critical moment, they would not want to burn their Jin Yuan. The side effects of burning Jin Yuan and the minor blood demon body separating great art combined together would be too much for Yi Chen's body. Perhaps only Su Jing's body would be able to last for a long time. This was also the main reason why he did not chase after the corpse man nearby. Pang Nia held up Zhuang Qinghe's body and said with his teeth clenched, "Fireman, don't think that I will give up on revenge just because you are dead. From now on, the Purple Sun Martial School will no longer exist in the Windy Nation." In fact, he hated Yi Chen a lot as well. However, Yi Chen was way too powerful, so Pang Nia did not dare to curse out loud. Otherwise, if he pissed off Yi Chen, he might be killed. Lin Shuihan sighed. "Brother Pang, I am sorry for your loss. This time, we have all underestimated the fireman's plan." Before they came, none of them had thought that the fireman would work with the ghost corpse man and try to kill them all. Even now, Lin Shuihan was still scared. The corpse man had left, leaving behind a huge number of bronze shell corpses. Xiao Heng and his wife were afraid that these corpses would leave the underground world and bring disaster to the Windy Nation, so they joined hands to kill them. Yi Chen and Lin Shuihan glanced at each other. Then they also went up to kill those bronze shell corpses that were not that powerful. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed, and Yi Chen had already returned to the Sky Cloud Martial School. After a month of training, Yi Chen had basically consolidated his early astral-reaching realm cultivation base. If he wanted to take another step forward, it would not be something that could be done in a day. On this day, Yi Chen bid farewell to Cloud Dreamer and went to the natural moat gorge of Wild Goose Falling River alone. On the way, he purposely passed by the vicinity of the house of Ziyang and discovered that there was a faint glow of blood in the sky above the house of Ziyang. That was the sign of a large number of highly skilled cultivators dying. There were a lot of warriors around the Purple Sun Martial School, some of which were powerful late-clasping Yuan realm warriors. Who could have known that the fireman had colluded with the corpse man and killed the great third master of the Emerald Martial School? Now the great head master of the Emerald Martial School, who had lost an arm, had come to the Purple Sun Martial School to take revenge. He had killed the leader and all of the core masters of the Purple Sun Martial School. Even half of the inner masters had died. Since then, the Purple Sun Martial School has completely fallen. There are only 4 top martial institutions left in the Windy Nation. Look, it is an astral-reaching realm warrior. Isn't that the great master of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Yi Chen? I heard that he had also participated in the operation to kill the corpse man, but he was not injured at all. That great master of the Emerald Martial School had lost an arm. Plus, this Yi Chen has reached the astral-reaching realm. He has a horrifying potential. Someone had noticed the existence of Yi Chen. Yi Chen did not pay attention to them and flew directly towards the entrance of the Purple Sun Martial School. In front of the entrance of the Purple Sun Martial School, a large number of disciples and masters had left the mountain. They did not want to stay in the declining Purple Sun Martial School anymore. Plus, they had offended the Emerald Martial School, which meant that the future of the Purple Sun Martial School would not be easy. If they did not make a decision now, they would regret it. Among all the masters, Yi Batian and his eldest son, Yi Feng, were walking down the mountain. Yi Batian lifted up his head and saw Yi Chen. He had a complicated look on his face. This time, the inner masters of the Purple Sun Martial School had been severely injured or killed. He was supposed to die as well, but Pang Nia had asked him if he was Yi Batian from the Yi family. After getting his answer, Pang Nia had decided not to kill him. A few of the inner masters who had a good relationship with him had also been spared. Yi Batian was not stupid. After thinking about it for a long time, he had thought that Yi Chen was afraid of Yi Chen and would not dare to kill him. Right then, seeing the profound qi coming from Yi Chen, he had confirmed his guess. He wanted to say something, but did not know what to say. Yi Chen looked indifferent. He turned around and shot into the distance, disappearing without a trace within a second. The Purple Sun Martial School had already fallen, so there was no need for Yi Chen to find trouble with them. The Wild Goose Falling River was one of the 3 largest rivers in the South Shui region. It was 650,000 miles long, and its main road went through the Windy Nation, the Thousand Thread Nation, the Grey Mystery Nation, and the other 12 nations. Its tributaries were tens of thousands of miles long, covering most of the 15 nations. On the boundless wild goose falling river, Yi Chen flew across the water surface. Last time, I met the Black Crow Man, an astral-reaching realm martial artist. This is the second time I've come to the wild goose falling river, and I'm already an astral-reaching realm martial artist. And my cultivation is even higher than the Black Crow Man's. Life is so wonderful. Looking at the ocean beast of the South Chamber of Commerce, Yi Chen sighed. An astral-reaching realm martial artist. The passengers on the ocean beast saw Yi Chen flying across the sky. They all yelled out in surprise. The natural moat gorge, which was over 17,000 meters tall and divided into two, gradually came into view. Yi Chen took a deep breath and raised his speed to his limit. Swoosh! Within 10 blinks of an eye, Yi Chen was less than 5 miles away from the natural moat gorge. From here on, I have to be extra careful. Standing in front of the branch of the wild goose falling river, Yi Chen didn't choose to fly anymore. Instead, he stepped on the water surface step by step, approaching the natural moat gorge. Back when he was on the ocean beast, he was slightly injured when he was only 10 miles away from the natural moat gorge. But now, he was completely unharmed when he was only 5 miles away from the natural moat gorge, which was a huge improvement. Inside his storage ring, the broken battle emperor's sword jumped up as usual, but was firmly suppressed by Yi Chen. 3 miles away from the natural moat gorge, boom! A horrifying sword intent surged out. Yi Chen, who had been prepared for this, leapt backwards and left the area. Horrifying. Back then, the Sky Pillar Mountain was divided into two and became the natural moat gorge. The crack of the natural moat gorge seems to be an outlet for the sword intent. I can't even get close to it. What should I do? Before, Yi Chen thought that the sword intent in the natural moat gorge would grow stronger gradually. But who knew that the sword intent would suddenly surge after he entered the 3 miles area? If he moved forward recklessly, he might be injured by the powerful sword intent, which was not what he wanted to see. After thinking for a while, Yi Chen decided to start from other places, to see if there was a suitable place for him to study the sword intent. If he couldn't find a suitable place to study the sword intent, he would have to figure out another way. 3 miles away from the natural moat gorge, Yi Chen was flying around it. Soon, Yi Chen arrived at the left side of the natural moat gorge. It was a flat area, where many warriors had gathered. In front of them was the left side of the natural moat gorge. There was a huge crack on the top of the mountain, which was hundreds to tens of meters wide. There is sword intent here as well. The whole natural moat gorge had been split in half by the Battle King's sword attack. Perhaps it was because of the vibrations, but the left side of the gorge had a crack. Under the crack was not water, but hard mud and a small stream. If one walked straight in, they would be able to reach the inside of the gorge. But of course, that would be suicidal. Dispersing his Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen slowly landed on the flat ground, 5 miles away from the crack. Nearby, a female sword artist had just recovered from studying the sword intent. She turned her head to look at Yi Chen and said warmly, "This is one of the release points of the natural moat gorge. But it is not as powerful as the sword intent on the other side of the gorge. If you are careful, you should be fine." Thanks for the reminder. Yi Chen nodded. He could tell that the female sword artist's sword intent had reached 50%, and she was also an early astral-reaching realm warrior herself. Perhaps it was because she thought that Yi Chen was very young and handsome. The female sword artist pointed around and said, "I have been here for a while, and I have seen a lot of people training their sword intent here. 7 miles away from the crack would be the best place to train entry-level sword intent. 6 miles would be the best place to train 40% sword intent. 5 miles would be the best place to train 50% sword intent, and so on. Do not be reckless. You also have 50% sword intent." After talking for a while, the female sword artist realized that Yi Chen was able to stand right next to her and be fine, which meant that he had obviously reached 50% sword intent. Judging from his appearance, he seemed to be less than 20 years old. Yi Chen chuckled and asked, "Then there are sword-shaped plants up there?" The female sword artist nodded and said, "Yes. But there are all of the top warriors from all of the martial institutions up there. It would be best if you do not think about the sword-shaped plants. But of course, if it comes from the stream, then it would not be under their control. We can fight for it ourselves. Sword-shaped plants come from this stream? Don't look down on this stream. There are a lot of people staring at it every day. If you could get a sword-shaped plant from the stream, it would be much better than cultivating here for a couple of months. If you are lucky, you might even be able to increase your sword intent. If you are not, you might even be able to accumulate some sword intent knowledge. Oh, it seems like this place is quite popular. The female sword artist said disappointedly. I have seen a couple of sword-shaped plants coming out from the stream, but they had all been taken by the powerful warriors in front of us. What can I do? My sword intent could not go any further. Otherwise, I would be able to join the fight. In this place, cultivation did not have much of an influence. The main thing was still the sword intent. If one's sword intent was high, then they would be able to get close to the crack. If one's sword intent was low, then they would only be able to watch others fight for the plants. Perhaps your luck will change. After understanding some of the common sense, Yichen decided not to stay any longer. He prepared to walk closer. What are you doing? The female sword artist covered her mouth. In her sight, Yichen's body flashed once, and appeared 5 miles away from the crack. The sword intent there did not affect him at all. It was not over yet. Yichen continued to walk. Soon, he was 3 miles away from the crack, and then 2 miles away. Oh my God! 80% sword intent. How did he learn it? The female sword artist looked like she could not believe it. There were not many sword artists near the crack. There were only 3 of them. One was an elder in his 60s, and the other 2 were middle-aged men with cold faces. Seeing Yichen walking over, the elder seemed to be thinking about something. The 2 middle-aged men's expressions changed a couple of times. They were obviously shocked by Yichen's sword intent realm. Yichen did not care about them. He only stopped when he was at the very front of the crack. The sword intent here is just within my limit. I will train it here. Taking out his star scar sword and wearing it on his left waist, Yichen glanced at the elder and the 2 middle-aged men. Seeing that they did not have any strange reactions, he then closed his eyes slightly, feeling the mysterious sword intent leaking out. Chapter 325. After a whole hour, Yichen finally woke up from his training state. Compared to the sword-shaped plant, the sword intent that leaked out from the crack contained more information, but it was also more chaotic. It was not as orderly as the sword-shaped plant. Yichen now understood why the sword-shaped plant was so popular. Although he could train the sword intent in the natural moat canyon at any time, without any obstacles or time limit, the sword intent in the canyon was so powerful. Being covered by the sword intent, he would be like a fish swimming against the current, unable to see the whole river flow. He could only passively accept the information that he could get. After 2 hours, the information that Yichen had received was all fragmented and messy. Wanting to learn something from it would be extremely difficult. However, the sword-shaped plant was different. It had absorbed the sword intent from the canyon and made a simple arrangement, which made the training easier. In other words, it was a weaker version of the sword intent of the Battle King. Of course, it was at least 1,000 times weaker, which was extremely different from the complete sword intent of the Battle King. No rush. Although the sword intent is fragmented, it is not completely useless. At least it can increase my sword intent foundation. In the future, I might be able to connect them together. A few thoughts flashed through his mind as Yichen continued to sink into his training state. 3 days had passed in a row. A few of the sword artists within miles had left, and a few more had come. The number had always been the same. That kind-hearted female sword artist was very patient. She had been staying where she was without moving. She would occasionally look towards Yichen's direction. Whoosh! Whoosh! That day, a crazy wind suddenly blew out from the crack. The wind was like a dragon's roar, a tiger's roar, or even a ghost's cry. It was extremely horrifying. Wind! Wind! The sword artists at the back saw it, and their faces were filled with excitement. Yichen thought about it. Could it be that the wind would bring the sword-shaped plant out? That would explain why everyone, including the female sword artist, were so excited. Shoo! Just as he thought about it, a sharp ear-piercing sound was heard from within the heavy wind. He looked up and saw a sword-shaped plant shoot out from within the gray wind. This sword-shaped plant contained a powerful sword intent. Although it was not controlled by anyone, it still displayed a shocking attacking power. It was like an unsheathed great sword. "This is mine!" Near Yi Chen, a skinny middle-aged man with a cold face jumped up from the ground, trying to grab the plant. "This sword-shaped plant should be mine." The old man in his 60s laughed out loud. He stomped on the ground and sent out waves of earth as he chased after the thin middle-aged man. The speed of the two was extremely fast. They approached the sword-shaped plant in an instant and started to fight for it. Who dares to fight with me?" The other middle-aged man was not as fast as the other two, but the sword-shaped plant was something he had to get. He opened his 5 fingers, which contained sword light. He grabbed in the air, and 5 beams of sword light interweaved together, shooting out. The 3 of them did not pull out their swords. 4 sword artists. Once they pulled out their swords, there would be blood. It was not the time for them to risk their lives yet, so they were all holding back. Yi Chen smiled. His body disappeared with the wind. When he reappeared, he was already on the other side. He extended his arm and picked up a sword-shaped plant from the air. "What? There is another one?" I could not even hear anything. Damn it, the 3 of us fought to the death, and he got one so easily. The 3 of them who were fighting for the plant looked bad. In the end, it was the elder who was more skillful, and he got the plant. Hee little brother, you have sharp senses. Impressive. Putting away the plant, the elder moved away from the 2 middle-aged men and looked at Yi Chen with a smile. Yi Chen said, "You were attracted by the first plant. It is not because of my sharp senses." Yi Chen would not dare to underestimate the 3. Before, his sword intent was his advantage, and it was also one of the reasons why he could fight beyond his realm. However, these 3 people's sword intent was not weaker than his, so it would be impossible for him to get the upper hand with his sword intent. Especially that elder. He had the highest cultivation among the 4, reaching mid-astral reaching realm. The other 2 middle-aged men were not bad either, both at peak level early astral reaching realm, which was higher than Yi Chen. Is that so? The elder obviously did not believe what Yi Chen had said. As a sword artist, his senses were already very sharp. It was not that they had never seen a couple of plants shooting out at the same time, but this time, they did not sense anything at all. Yi Chen being able to sense the second plant so easily was enough to explain the situation. If he was only a bit interested in Yi Chen before, then right now, he had already considered Yi Chen as a powerful opponent for the plant. As for the 2 middle-aged men who did not get the plant, a strange light flashed through their eyes. They seemed to want to take Yi Chen's plant by force, but they were also quite scared of him. "The wind is still blowing. Let's see what we can do." Yi Chen did not expect them to believe him. Lowering his attitude was just to ease the atmosphere. If they were too aggressive, he would not mind fighting with them. The 4 of them had their own thoughts as they focused on the gray wind. Behind them, a lot of sword artists started to yell. "They got it again. We can't even get the leftovers. What can we do?" They are in the 2-mile area, which is the front line. We are too far away, and the plant would not be able to get here. Sigh. Before there were only 3 of them. Sometimes, there would be 1 or 2 fish that slipped through the net. Now there is 1 more. Our chance of getting the plant is getting lower and lower. It was very rare for the wind to blow inside the crack. It would only happen once or twice a month. Every time the wind blew, it would be the time when the plant would appear the most. Basically, there would be a different amount of plants flying out. Therefore, a lot of sword artists were looking forward to the wind inside the crack. They wished that it would blow every day. Although there were plants flying out of the stream, the speed of the stream was way too slow. The chance of the people behind them getting the plant from the stream was almost 0, unless there was no one in front of them. The female sword artist saw that Yi Chen had gotten a sword-shaped plant so easily, so she was a bit surprised. Those 3 in the 2-mile area were not simple at all. A lot of powerful warriors had tried to fight against the Battle King's sword intent, trying to take the food from them, but they had all been killed without a doubt. However, facing Yi Chun, who had gotten a sword-shaped plant. The three did not even try to take it. It seemed like they were quite afraid of him. Sighing, the female sword artist forced a smile. She was only one step away from the 60% sword intent. If she had a plant, she might be able to make it. Unfortunately, she had not even touched a plant in the past couple of months. She could only watch it fall into someone else's hands. Shoo! 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 Right at that moment, the wind inside the crack became even more intense, bringing up a tornado. At least 8 or 9 plants shot out as fast as lightning, flashing once and disappearing. Good timing. The elder did not care about anything else. He reached out his hand and grabbed 2 of them. The other 2 middle-aged men were a bit weaker, but they both got 1 each. The fastest one would have to be Yi Chun. Before the sword-shaped plants appeared, his body had already jumped into the air. His body flashed and 3 plants landed in his hand. No matter it was the timing, the movement, or the horrifying coordination, it was all frightening. The 4 of them had gotten 7 plants in total. The remaining 2 went through the air above them, reaching the 3-mile area. All the sword artists in the 3-mile area jumped into the air at the same time. However, the plants were way too fast. They went right through them and reached the 4-mile area. Haha, I got one. One of the sword artists in the 4-mile area was lucky. One of the plants had been shot in the same direction as him. There is still one more. The female sword artist was in the 5 miles area. She was already prepared to be empty-handed, but just like Yi Chun had said, her luck would eventually change. The last plant landed right in front of her, sinking 3 inches deep into the ground. The tail of the plant could not stop shaking. I got one just like this. She still could not believe it. In case something bad happened, she hurried to pull out the plant and threw it into her storage ring. A satisfied expression appeared on her face. With this plant, it is not impossible to increase my sword intent to 60%. All the sword artists in the 3-mile area and the 4-mile area who did not get any plants were almost going crazy. 9 plants. They did not even get one. If Yi Chun and the other 3 could get it, it would be fine, since they were very powerful and had a high level of sword intent. No one would dare to fight against them. As for the remaining 2 plants, why would they not be theirs? 6 swordsmen surrounded the man, who had the sword-shaped plant in the 4-mile area. Between his life and the plants, the man chose to give up. He looked disappointed. Soon, the 6 of them arrived near the female sword artist and surrounded her. If you know what's good for you, hand over the plants. Otherwise, you will lose your life. The female sword artist backed out a couple of steps. It is mine. I will give you 3 breaths of time. If you do not hand it over, you will die. The leading sword artist threatened. I will not hand it over. I stay here for a couple of months every year. This is my first time getting one. The female sword artist said angrily. Ha! You want to do this the hard way? Kill her. The 6 of them pulled out their weapons, their Zhen Yuan exploding violently. In the 2-mile area, Yi Chun shook his head. Under the surprised look of the elder and the 2 middle-aged men, he walked towards the 5-mile area step by step. Get the fuck back to your positions. Without wasting any time, Yi Chun yelled. Brat, this is our business. You better stay out of it. Don't think that just because you have a high level of sword intent, we will not be able to do anything to you. Battling power is not something that can be supported by sword intent alone. Yi Chun's power was still quite powerful. Otherwise, they would have attacked him already. The female sword artist was both grateful and worried, afraid that Yi Chun would be taken advantage of. Having a high level of sword intent was one thing, but having a high battling power was another. The 2 were not equal. Chin. The Star Scar sword was pulled out halfway. That horrifying sword light cut out a crack on the ground. The crack spread out at an unimaginable speed until it reached under the 6 people's feet. I will say it again. All of you get the fuck off. Yi Chun looked cold. These 6 people were all at early astral reaching realm, and one of them was at mid-astral reaching realm. They all had 60 or 70% sword intent, but their martial arts and sword arts were way weaker. So, Yi Chun did not care about them at all. Brat, you are looking for death. The leading mid-astral reaching realm warrior could not hold it anymore. he yelled as his Zhen Yuan started to burn crazily, throwing out a sword attack towards Yi Chen. Chapter 326. His blue robes fluttered in the air as Yi Chen took out his Star Scar sword. The second he did so, his green lotus Zhen Yuan had already started to burn fiercely. A pure blue fire wave exploded, bringing up a light pattern in the surreal space. This kind of power was normally only available to mid-astral reaching realm warriors. Shoo! Taking out his sword, Yi Chen threw out a sword attack towards his opponent. Within that blue sword light was a majestic green lotus, which seemed to support the sky while its roots pierced into the ground. The sword light sliced down heavily, with an unstoppable momentum. It was indeed the most aggressive ace attack of the Green Lotus sword arts, Green Lotus Mountain opening. The ground cracked open, and the person who had thrown out the sword attack was shocked. He was obviously the one who had thrown out the first attack, so how did his opponent get there first? Plus, that sword light contained an unimaginable power. Facing it, he felt like he was about to be torn apart, which made his scalp go numb. Seal it! As the sword was about to land, the person changed his sword movement, trying to block out Yi Chen's sword light. Boom! A thick layer of the ground was shaved off. That sword artist's feet rubbed against the ground as he was blown away, puking out a huge mouthful of blood. The Star Scar sword created a sword flower in the surreal space, cutting through the air. The poetic perspective was horrifying. Yi Chen's gaze landed on the other five. This is the holy land for sword artists. I do not want to kill you all. Back off. Yes, yes. The five saw that even the most powerful among them could not handle one sword attack from Yi Chen, so they did not dare to stay any longer. In a battle between sword artists, life and death was only a matter of a few attacks. As for that sword artist who had been beaten back by Yi Chen, he also did not dare to challenge him again, so he quickly left the place. He had been wounded quite badly, and would need some time to heal up. Otherwise, it would be hard for him to fight against the sword intent leaking out of the crack. Thank you. The female sword artist closed her slightly open mouth and thanked him, putting his sword back into its scabbard. Yi Chen waved his hand and said, "This is my first time here, so I would like to thank you for telling me some common sense. These are just small things. No need to thank me. Alright, you be careful. I still need to collect more sword-shaped plants." Although 4 sword-shaped plants could help him reach 90% sword intent, but Yi Chen planned to accumulate enough sword-shaped plants all at once. Plus, the sword intent that leaked out from the crack was not completely useless. The messy information of the sword intent would eventually be sorted out, and he might have to rely on it to break through to the peak-level sword intent in the future. Returning to the 2-kilometer area, Yi Chen pushed the matter from his mind. The middle-aged man, who was also in the 2-mile area, felt lucky that he did not try to steal his sword-shaped plant earlier. Not only had his sword intent reached 80%, his battling power was also terrifyingly high. Being able to fight beyond his cultivation, he was probably not weaker than the elder, and might even be slightly stronger than him. The elder chuckled and gave up on the idea of stealing the plant. He would have plenty of chances to get more sword-shaped plants in the future, so there was no need to risk his life for it. It was not worth it. Yi Chen did not know what the others were thinking, and even if he did, he would not care. It was not because he was arrogant, but even without his martial arts and sword arts, his sword intent was still not something they could compete with, because they did not have the Battle King's sword, and their comprehensive abilities were not as good as his either. Although they were both 80% sword intent, Yi Chen's sword intent contained the immortal mentality, which was an insurmountable advantage. It was also the foundation for him to survive. With the Battle King's sword, I would be able to use at least 10 times more efficiently than these people. What a shame. It was not that Yi Chen did not have the thought of stealing the plant, but after thinking about it, he decided to give up. He was not a demonic man, who would rather sacrifice others to strengthen himself. Therefore, there would be no difference between him and the other 6 people. If he wanted to be powerful, he would have to be powerful in an upright way, and not let his sword intent be covered by dust. His sword intent was a vast sword intent, an indestructible sword intent. Unknowingly, Yi Chen's sword intent had gotten firmer, and no evil could get through it. The wind gradually weakened until it disappeared, and the ground returned to its original peace and quiet. Hehe, 5 plants should be enough. I will leave first. The elder could not wait any longer, and wanted to try to break through to the 90% sword intent. After all, he had already gotten 2 plants before, so it was not like he did not have the chance to break through to the 90% sword intent. Plus, with Yi Chun here, he did not know when he would be able to get more plants. After the elder left, the 2 middle-aged men and the sword artists behind him were the ones who were excited. Yi Chun did not care about anything, and just quietly trained his sword intent. After 10 days, the 2 middle-aged men left as well. Only Yi Chun was left in the 2-mile area, and there were not many sword artists in the 1-mile area. Opening his eyes, Yi Chun thought to himself, during these 10 days, there were 2 sword-shaped plants that flowed out of the stream, and I got both of them. In total, I have 6 sword-shaped plants, which should be enough for me to break through to the 90% sword intent. If I cannot, then it means that it is not the right time for me to break through yet, and the foundation of my sword intent would not be stable. However, it was already enough for him to break through to the 90% sword intent. If he wanted to break through to the next level, it would be even harder. He would have to wait until he got all 9 of them. Yi Chun was very ambitious. This time, he not only wanted to break through to the 90% sword intent, but he also wanted to break through to the advanced level. Of course, the possibility was very low. 80% to 90% was already hard enough, and from 90% to the advanced level, it would be even harder than from the beginner level to the 90% sword intent. If he really wanted to break through, even if Yi Chun had the Battle King's sword, he would need at least 20 to 30 sword-shaped plants. If it were someone else, it would be almost impossible for them to break through to the advanced level with just the sword-shaped plants, unless they were extremely talented in the sword arts, which meant that they were 2 or 3 times more talented than Yi Chun. Yi Chun had never heard of this kind of genius before. Breaking through to the advanced level sword intent was Yi Chun's biggest goal. After that, he wanted to at least stabilize the 90% sword intent. After all, 99% was the advanced level, and the gap between the two was not small at all. If he wanted to do it all at once, then he would have more hope. If he did it intermittently, then he would lose a lot of inspiration. After another 10 days, Yi Chun got another sword-shaped plant. The female sword artist was getting ready to leave. She was planning to say goodbye to Yi Chun, but seeing that he was still focused on his sword intent, she had to leave helplessly. The next day there was a rare wind in the crack. However, compared to last time, the wind was much weaker, and there were only 3 sword-shaped plants. With 3 sword-shaped plants in his hand, Yi Chun had 10 sword-shaped plants in his storage now. It is time to leave. I have to give the others some chances. The sword artists who came here mainly wanted to learn the Battle King's sword intent that had leaked out from the crack. The sword-shaped plants were an extra reward, but they could not get anything from it at all. Obviously, they were very frustrated. With 10 sword-shaped plants, Yi Chun did not plan to occupy the 2 miles area anymore. He finally left. Luckily, I was able to hold on. Hehe. Although the sword-shaped plants were an extra reward, if I could get one, then this trip would be worth it. Seeing Yi Chun leave, everyone was overjoyed. Of course, some of the weaker sword artists were worried. Before, with Yi Chun there, those aggressive sword artists did not dare to push it too far. But once Yi Chun left, those people would not be able to control their greed and try to take the plants. In the end, this world had always been a survival of the fittest. The more powerful you were, the more people would respect you. 3 days after Yi Chun left, a group of unexpected guests showed up outside the crack. Have you seen this guy before? The leader took out a portrait from his storage ring. The portrait was none other than Yi Chun. Yes, he just left 3 days ago. The sword artist who was asked answered honestly. There were a lot of people on the other side, and the ones walking in the front were all astral-reaching realm warriors. More importantly, they were wearing the uniform of the rank 6 martial school, the floating mountain martial school, which was not someone they could mess with. They could not help but wonder where Yi Chun came from. since he dared to go against the floating mountain martial school. The leader heard him and said with a cold voice, "Ha! He escaped again." They were all under Taoist Jin Huang, who was the core master of the floating mountain martial school. With one order, he could send out a lot of people. They were only one of the groups that were chasing after Yi Chun. This time, there were more than 10 groups, and each group had 2 to 3 astral-reaching realm warriors. The biggest group even had a late astral-reaching realm warrior, who was the assistant of Taoist Jin Huang. Taoist Jin Huang's order was to send someone to inform him as soon as they got the news. "Master Lu, don't worry. After messing with Master Jin Huang, this brat will die sooner or later." The middle-aged man who was called Master Lu put away the portrait. Of course. What kind of cultivation does Master Jin Huang have? Even if we give him 5 years, he would not be able to compete with Master Jin Huang. If he does not die now, he will die even more miserably in the future. Let's go. In the mountains thousands of miles away from the natural moat gorge, under the waterfall, Yi Chun sat on a huge rock, staring at the 6 sword marks on the wall. Among the 6 sword marks, 2 of them contained an unparalleled sword intent. The sword intent lingered for a long time, filling up the entire surreal space, making the air around it as sticky as water. Yi Chun had been sitting there for 10 days. During these 10 days, he had used up 6 sword-shaped plants in total. The sword intent of one plant could stay in the surreal space for 3 days. However, Yi Chun was not satisfied yet. Before the sword intent had completely disappeared, another sword mark would appear, which kept the sword intent at its most intense level. Woo! At noon, the waterfall stopped for a second. The water splashed in the midair, and did not fall down for a long time. The breeze around had disappeared as well, and it was dead silent. Boom! Invisibly, a wave of sword intent shot up into the sky, shooting up into the clouds. 90% sword intent done. Shaking off the dust on his body, Yi Chun stood up and opened his eyes. The surreal space was shaking, like a great sword that had been covered in dust for hundreds of years, had just been pulled out of its scabbard, shocking the world. The sword intent slowly disappeared as Yi Chun let out a breath full of sharp qi. He mumbled to himself, "Comprehending the sword intent by myself was just a pure sword intent. However, from the Battle King's sword intent, I could sense the immortal mentality. Compared to the 80% sword intent, the immortal mentality, contained in the 90% sword intent, had increased by 5 times. The others would never have thought that I could gain something like this. There was only one Battle King's sword, and only that sword could trigger the immortal mentality in the Battle King's sword intent. It was Yi Chun's fortune, and no one else knew about it. Yi Chun was confident that with the 90% sword intent, he would be able to compete with other people's completed sword intent. The immortal mentality was way too powerful, and did not belong to this realm at all. It was like a life and death realm warrior, standing high above the rest, and looking down on the world. With the increase of the sword intent, my cultivation is unbelievably stable. It should be because of my clear mind, without any dirt on me. Unfortunately, I do not have any pellets or spirit plants that could increase the cultivation of astral-reaching realm warriors. Otherwise, I would be able to reach the peak level of early astral-reaching realm right now. The sword intent on the sword mark had not disappeared yet, so Yi Chun took out another sword-shaped plant. It had been broken, and the sword intent contained in it was poured into the broken Battle King's sword. Yi Chun lifted up the sword, and slashed out a new sword mark. Let's go all out and see what level I can reach with 90% sword intent. 99% was the completed sword intent. Even reaching 91% would be a huge improvement. Chapter 327. 6 sword-shaped plants had increased Yi Chun's sword intent to 90%, but it was just the beginning. As the 7th plant was used up, Yi Chun could feel that the sword intent that he had learned earlier was being verified with the 7th plant's sword intent. It felt like he had accumulated a lot of experience. It seems like the accumulation of sword intent was right after all. Without those 20 days of training, it would still be unknown if my sword intent could reach 90%, not to mention breaking through to a higher realm. The sword intent inside the plant was actually not perfect, and the sword intent leaking out from the crack was not perfect either. But the two combined together and complemented each other, making it a lot more complete. Time flew by like water. Yi Chen had used up all of his stored sword-shaped plants, and the reward was shocking. According to his own estimation, his sword intent was at least 93%, and was not far from 99%. As his sword intent continued to increase, Yi Chen finally had some understanding of the immortal mentality. First of all, the immortal mentality was something beyond the mentality, and was above it. Secondly, the immortal mentality was very special, and had nothing to do with most of the mentalities. After all, even if it was beyond the mentality, it would still have something to do with it. At least it would be based on the mentality, and it would be impossible to create something out of nothing. However, the immortal mentality seemed to be created out of nothing, from nothing, from nothing, from nothing, and from nothing. Yi Chen did not know if he had guessed it right or not, but he thought that the immortal mentality meant the highest level, and was above everything else. Forget it. With my cultivation, thinking about it would drive me crazy. I would need to at least reach the Sea of Souls realm before I could even think about it. For things that he had no clue about, he would never try to understand it forcefully. That would only drive him crazy, and it would not be worth it. Above the pond, Yi Chen lifted up his fist and threw out a punch. Shoo! A vacuum tunnel was torn open in the air, and it was quickly filled up with new air, making an extremely shrill scream. Pooh! The waterfall was cut in half like a piece of cloth, one top and one bottom. My comprehensive ability has allowed me to increase my martial art realm at an extremely fast speed, and the higher the martial art realm, the faster my cultivation base will increase as well. However, the higher the sword intent realm, it can also increase my cultivation speed. It has only been a month since I came out, and my cultivation base has already been completely stabilized. I am about to reach the peak of early astral reaching realm. It was undeniable that Yi Chen's rapid growth in cultivation had a lot to do with the growth of his sword intent. In fact, in terms of cultivation talent, Yi Chen was just at the level of top geniuses. However, the sword intent had made his mind more clear, clearing away all distracting thoughts, allowing him to bring out his cultivation talent to 100%, or even 120%. However, some of the extremely talented people might not even be able to bring out 90 or 80% of their cultivation talent. The sword-shaped plant had been used up, but Yi Chen's learning had not disappeared yet. He planned to stay here for a few more days until he could no longer learn anymore. Wild Goose Falling River Natural Moat Gorge. The number of swordsmen outside the fissure continued to increase. Unknowingly, the number of swordsmen had exceeded 100. Every day, many people would leave, and many more would come. And among the swordsmen who had come this time, 2 of them were extremely eye-catching. One of them was the astral-reaching realm sword artist Song Yan, who had met Yi Chen once before. The other one was an elder in black robes. His face was dry, and he did not have a beard. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well. Judging their cultivation, they were only at mid and late astral-reaching realm, which was not that horrifying. However, their sword intent had reached 90%, which allowed them to fight against the Battle King's sword intent that was 1 mile away from the fissure. Indeed, they were right outside the fissure. In the past couple of months, it was the first time that sword artists had appeared in this place, and there were 2 of them at the same time. 90% sword intent. So horrifying. I heard that once you reach the completion of the sword intent, battling beyond realms would be as easy as eating and drinking. But to reach the completion of the sword intent would be extremely hard. I have been stuck at 60% sword intent for a couple of years now, and there is still no sign of a breakthrough. All of the swordsmen nearby could not help but discuss. 1 mile away, the elder in black robes mumbled to himself, "No matter how powerful the sword intent is, it will be destroyed one day. It seems like this Battle King's sword intent is going to disappear soon." Song Yin chuckled. "It is already impressive for it to exist for 500 years. Sword Elder, do you know what level the Battle King's sword intent has reached?" Unpredictable. Unpredictable. It is almost at the level of the natural law. Almost at the natural law. So horrifying. Song Yin gasped. The natural law was something that only life and death realm warriors could learn. According to the legends, once one learned the natural law, he or she would be able to reach another realm, one that was beyond the life and death realm. Unfortunately, no one had ever learned the natural law. If the Battle King's level was close to the natural law, then why had he not become an emperor yet? I do not know why, but the fact that the Battle King's sword intent could exist for 500 years means that it is already close to the natural law. Perhaps our cultivation is still too low, and there is still a huge gap between us and the Battle King. Once we fill this gap, we will be able to touch the Battle King realm. Song Yin nodded. Indeed, they were the top of the astral reaching realm warriors, but compared to the Battle King, they were just like ants. Talking about high-level stuff with the status of ants was already extremely ridiculous. Letting out a breath, Song Yin raised his head and looked at the crack. This crack had only appeared last year. The natural moat gorge, and the Battle King's sword intent would indeed not last for too long. 3 to 5 years at the slowest, and 1.5 years at the fastest, the Battle King's sword intent would disappear for sure. We should take this opportunity to learn more about the sword intent, and collect some sword-shaped plants. Yeah, that makes sense. The two calmed down and sank into the state of learning. Crack! Crack! Boom! Just when the two of them were trying to comprehend the sword will, a huge crack suddenly appeared on the natural moat gorge. The crack meandered and climbed all the way to the top of the gorge, reaching a height of 17,000 to 18,000 meters. The center of the crack was pitch black, like the mouth of a demon. The strong vibration woke everyone up. Another crack has appeared. The Sword Elder frowned. Song Yin sighed inwardly. Because of the existence of the Battle King's sword intent, the natural moat gorge had already become the holy land for sword artists. But this holy land would also disappear in the near future. He did not know whether he should be sad or sad. Look, a huge amount of sword-shaped plants are flying out. So many. We have made it. Once the second crack was created, the violent vibration brought up the airflow, creating a strong whirlwind. Within the whirlwind, there were dozens of sword-shaped plants. They were all like sharp swords shooting out with a shocking sword intent. They were as fast as lightning. The Sword Elder laughed. Song Yin, our luck is not bad. It has only been 1 day, and we have already found a huge amount of sword-shaped plants. I only need 10. Song Yan's body flashed as he reached out his arms, trying to grab the plants nearby. This time, I am trying to reach the completion of my sword intent. 15 will be fine. The Sword Elder did not want to pass on the responsibility, so he started to fight for the other plants. Shoo! Not far away, a blue figure flew over at an extreme speed. Luckily, I made it in time. Another crack had appeared in the gorge. The blue figure was indeed Yi Chen. Right then, he saw the plants shooting out of the crack, so he would not waste any time. His speed increased to its limit, and within 2 flashes, he had already reached 1 mile away. What? Another sword artist with 90% sword intent? It is him. Half a month ago, people from the Floating Mountain Martial School had come to find him. Many of the sword artists had recognized Yi Chen. As for Song Yin and the Sword Elder, they were also shocked. After seeing the face of the person who had just arrived, Song Yin was even more shocked. Brother Yi, I did not expect you to reach 90% sword intent, from 70% sword intent in just 2 years. Congratulations. Hearing him, the Sword Elder's eyebrows flicked. This person is indeed the #1 martial genius of the South Ridra region, Yi Chen. No wonder he has such a horrifying sword intent. No, this sword intent is not a normal 90% sword intent. The Sword Elder was extremely shocked. Even his speed of getting the plants had slowed down a bit, because he had sensed something similar to the Battle King's sword intent from Yi Chen's sword intent. With the 3 plants in his hands, Yi Chen continued to fight. He said, Senior Song Yin, long time no see. What is going on with this crack? Back then, the Sky Pillar Mountain had been sliced open by the Battle King's sword attack. A lot of places had been shaken up, but because the sword intent had always been in a rich state, It had the effect of toughening the rocks. Now that the Battle King's sword intent has been weakening, the gorge is about to collapse as well. This crack is a sign of it collapsing. I see. Yi Chen had always been confused. Since he could get the plants here, why did Song Yan still want to fight for them in the auction? It seemed like when the auction was held in the Gold Tripod City, the crack had not appeared yet. So the sword intent had to be trained on the river on both sides of the gorge. On top of the gorge, all of the top warriors from all of the martial institutions were shocked. Not good. Another crack has appeared. The day of the gorge collapsing is not far away. A lot of people are fighting for the plants down there, which belong to all of us. If I have guessed it right, there will be more cracks appearing in the coming days. By then, there will be even more plants flying out. If we do not do something soon, it will be a huge loss. Tell the others to lock down the gorge and get rid of these sword artists. I have been annoyed by these sword artists for a long time. Shoo, 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 shoo. Soon, dozens of astral-reaching realm warriors flew down from the top of the gorge. Some of them yelled, "This place has been locked down. Everyone leave. If you do not leave, we will kill you." The dozens of astral-reaching realm warriors were still at the front. Soon more astral-reaching realm warriors arrived. There were no less than 500 of them. Since there were more powerful martial institutions stationed at the top of the gorge than the sword artists on the scene. As they were talking, all of the powerful martial institutions started to chase the people away. Their powerful Zhen Yuan vibration gathered together, looking like a tsunami that could shatter the sky and crack the ground. So aggressive! How dare they chase us away? The natural moat gorge was created by the Battle King. If we are talking about the owner, it would be the Battle King and his descendants. They have been ruling the gorge for a long time, and now they want to chase us away. All of the sword artists on the scene were very angry. Chapter 328. Boom, boom, boom. Huge holes that were dozens of meters deep appeared on the ground. That horrifying Zhen Yuan flow had brought up the natural Yuan Qi, bringing up a horrifying Qi wave, forcing all of the sword artists to leave the place. So aggressive, the sword elder had almost been hit by a Zhen Yuan flow, his face turning black. Song Yan's luck was not so good, as his clothes had been torn apart by the Qi wave, revealing the low-rank inner armor underneath. The 13th plant, activating his Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen's body flashed as he grabbed onto the 13th plant, preparing to leave. How dare you try to steal the plant right under our noses? Make him spit out all of the plants. 7 to 8 astral-reaching realm warriors had noticed Yi Chen, so they all rushed over, each throwing out a horrifying Zhen Yuan flow. Yi Chen frowned as he took out his Star Scar sword, using his green lotus flower seizing seal to block out the incoming attack. How dare you? How dare you fight back? Hand over all of the plants, and we will let you live. These people saw that Yi Chen had blocked out their attacks so easily, so they were quite shocked. Although there were only 2 mid-astral reaching realm warriors among them, their combined power was so powerful that even late astral reaching realm warriors would not dare to take it head-on. However, Yi Chen had managed to take it all with one attack. With the advantage in numbers, the 2 leading warriors had a dark look on their faces as they pointed at Yi Chen and yelled. Backing out to the safe area, Yi Chen stood on the ground and said with a cold voice, "I have no problem with you locking down the natural moat gorge, but I will not hand over the plants. Even if you don't want to, you will have to. Don't force us to kill you." Yi Chen squeezed his eyes slightly. To be honest, as long as Sea of Souls realm warriors did not show up, he would not be afraid of anyone. Right now, his sword intent had already reached 93%, and because it contained the immortal mentality, it was almost equivalent to the completed sword intent. He was confident that he could beat Jin Huang even if he ran into him. Although there were a lot of powerful martial artists stationed in the canyon, as long as they did not surround him, they would not be able to do anything to him. Therefore, asking him to hand over the plants would be a pipe dream. Not to mention the fact that they would be useful to him. Even if they were not, he would not hand them over. Just as Yi Chen was about to attack, the ghost head took a step out. "You guys, Don't push it too far. I, the Sword Head, have been in the South Ridra region for so many years, and even the leaders of rank 7 martial institutions would have to be polite to me. Who do you think you are? How dare you yell at me like this? Who attacked me before? Are you blind? What? It's Sword Elder. One of the top 10 sword artists in the astral reaching realm, the Sword Elder, and the one right next to him seems to be Song Yen, right? Although Song Yen is not in the top 10 sword artists, but he is still one of the top 10 sword artists. The few of them were a bit scared. The Sword Elder was a loner, without any family or friends. His own power was horrifying, and he was ranked at the top of the top 10 sword artists. Below the Sea of Souls realm, there were barely any powerful warriors who could compete with him. Therefore, most of the time, rank 7 martial institutions would not dare to mess with the Sword Elder, since there would not be any Sea of Souls realm warriors in the martial institutions. If they mess with the Sword Elder, he could easily kill a couple of people, and then run away, then come back in a few days to kill more people. Without a certain amount of astral reaching realm warriors, it would be impossible to kill him. If it were only these, then it would not be a big deal. A few years ago, there was a powerful sword artist who was called the Blood Sword Artist. Just like the Sword Elder, he was one of the top 10 sword artists in the astral reaching realm. At that time, a master of a rank 7 martial institution had bullied others and was killed by the Blood Sword Artist. The leader of the rank 7 martial institution was furious and sent out a lot of astral reaching realm warriors to chase after the Blood Sword Artist. However, the Blood Sword Artist's battling power was extremely powerful. He fought while running and eventually killed a lot of his pursuers. The leader of the rank 7 martial institution regretted it. The number of astral reaching realm warriors in a rank 7 martial institution was limited, and a lot of them had been killed by the Blood Sword Artist. Their overall power had dropped drastically, and it would not be worth it. However, it would be impossible for him to let go of his pride, so he could only send out a notice, asking the Blood Sword Artist to come and apologize. However, who was the Blood Sword Artist? He was a famous brutal warrior in the whole South Ridra region. His killing intent was extremely heavy. As long as he did not cause any trouble, it would be fine. But, if he did, he would exhaust you to death. In the past 2 years, the rank 7 martial institutions that had messed with the Blood Sword Artist had been forced to hide in their martial institutions, not daring to go out. Their disciples had left the martial institutions one after another, and a lot of the masters could not stand it either. Some of them had left the martial institutions, while others had joined other martial institutions. Not long after, this rank 7 martial institution had fallen completely, and was forced to become a rank 8 martial institution. One had to admit that the Blood Sword Artist was too brutal. He had messed up the martial institutions, but he still did not want to let it go. Finally, one day, he sneaked in and killed the leader of the martial institution. Then he started a massacre, killing all of the astral reaching realm warriors in the martial institutions, completing the miracle of one man, destroying a martial institution. It was the first time in hundreds of years that something like this had happened. With the example of the Blood Sword Artist, all of the rank 7 martial institutions had come to the same conclusion. Never mess with an astral reaching realm warrior with super powerful battling power, unless you had the confidence to kill him with one attack. Otherwise, if he did not die, then the future would be hard to live. The martial institutions that they were in might become the second sacrifice in hundreds of years. It is the Sword Elder. We were blind and could not recognize you. Please forgive us. The attitude of the group of people had changed drastically, as they cupped their fists and apologized. Right next to the Sword Elder, Song Yin snorted. My brother Yi had already left that area, yet you still dared to chase after him. I am not afraid to tell you that his battling power is not weaker than mine. Even if he killed you, your martial institutions might not be able to do anything about it. Song Yin did not know what level Yi Chen's battling power was at, but he had a feeling that Yi Chen's battling power might not be weaker than his, and might even be above it. It could be seen from the Sword Elder's shocked expression. Plus, Yi Chun was the #1 martial genius in the whole South Rudra region. As a top martial genius, how could he only have sword intent as his ace? His sword movements and poetic perspectives were equally horrifying. Not weaker than Song Yan. The few of them looked at each other. Who was Song Yan? Even if he was not one of the top 10 astral-reaching realm sword artists, he should at least be in the top 20. He was listed as a second-class warrior by the rank 7 martial institutions, and Yi Chun's power was not weaker than him. Did it not mean that he was also a second-class warrior by the rank 7 martial institutions? Sorry. The leader of the group took a deep breath, feeling extremely regretful. Judging from Yi Chun's tough tone, Song Yan's words might not be fake. Compared to his life, what was an apology? He was afraid that he would be too shy and refused to admit his mistake, which would make him a powerful enemy. Putting away his sword intent, Yi Chun looked very calm. He did not accept the apology, but he did not reject it either. The sword elder opened his mouth. All right, you guys go and remind the others not to push it too far. The sword-shaped plant belongs to the individual. Yes, then we will leave now. The few of them were still afraid of the sword elder. It was easy to tell that the sword elder and Song Yan were good friends. Song Yan had called Yi Chun brother Yi, which meant that they were quite close. Waiting until the few of them left, the sword elder turned around and smiled at Yi Chun. This is how the South Rudra region is. Only the powerful ones are respected. Don't think that they have martial institutions behind them. As long as it is not a rank 6 martial institution, they would not dare to yell at me. Blood sword is an example right there. Yi Chun held his fists towards Song Yan and the sword elder. Thank you for your help, seniors. Without their help, Yi Chun would have been fine as well. But those were two different things, and it had nothing to do with his battling power. He would still have to thank them, since he was not someone who did not know what was good for him. At the same time, he had also learned about the power of the top 10 sword artists in the astral-reaching realm. Even the powerful warriors from rank 7 martial institutions would not dare to mess with them. If he wanted to reach that level, he would have to show enough battling power. Otherwise, he would not be able to win the approval of the whole world. Just like the sword elder had said, in the South Rudra region, only the powerful ones were respected. Who had the bigger fist would be the most powerful one. Everything would be decided by power. The sword elder shook his head with a smile. Your potential is way more powerful than mine. I am just the icing on the cake. It seems like Song Yan thinks very highly of you. Song Yan introduced to Yi Chun. Yi Chun, this is one of the famous top 10 sword artists in the astral-reaching realm, the sword elder. He is the teacher who guided me on the path of a sword artist. The three of them were all sword artists, so they had a lot of topics to talk about. With the sword elder's warning, all of the powerful martial institutions that were stationed in the natural moat gorge started to behave themselves. No one tried to kick them out again. Although those sword artists were not happy about it, they knew that there were too many of them, and they had the support of their martial institutions, which was not something they could compete with. So they left the gorge one by one. In the afternoon, Yi Chun and the sword elder said goodbye to Song Yan. Seniors, I still have to go to the martial city. I will say goodbye for now. The sword elder nodded. Young man, it is better to be busy. When you have time, we can catch up. Your understanding of the sword art is very unique, and it has helped me a lot. The sword elder's experience has also helped Yi Chun a lot. If there is a chance, I will definitely come and visit. Hehe, I will wait for you. After separating from the two, Yi Chun did not stop, and headed towards the martial city. This time, Yi Chun was going to the martial city for no other reason than to find some great medicines to increase his cultivation. Right now, his cultivation had already been stabilized, and he could definitely reach the peak level of early astral reaching realm. Once he reached that level, his battling power would definitely increase by a small level, which would be very useful to him. He knew very well that his battling power was not as powerful as the sword elder yet, and not as powerful as the top 10 sword artists in the astral reaching realm. To be able to be in the top 10, one's cultivation would have to be at least at the late astral reaching realm, and the martial arts and sword arts that they trained would have to be at least high-rank Earth realm. Their sword intent would also have to be at least 90%. All in all, their battling power would be amazing. Even if Yi Chun had a lot of advantages, he would still not be able to compete with them. Of course, the only thing that Yi Chun lacked was his cultivation, which was relatively easy to increase, since it was where his potential lied. Secondly, he had gotten 13 sword-shaped plants this time, which would be perfect for him to train his sword intent in the training room in the martial city, which would be more peaceful than anywhere else. Although I am not alone, and I am not as free as the Sword Elder and the Blood Sword Artist, who are able to fight against rank 7 martial institutions without any worries, but with that powerful man and the South Ridra Martial School, the Sky Cloud Martial School, and the Yi family are pretty safe. Once my power reaches the level of the top 10 astral-reaching realm sword artists, there would be very few things in the South Ridra region that could threaten me. Yi Chun kept thinking and thinking about other things at the same time. A couple of days later, Yi Chun arrived at the martial city. Without stopping, he walked straight to the trading palace in the inner city. Chapter 329. The trading palace had always been very popular, and it would always be packed with people. In the entire South Ridra region, only the martial city's trading palace had the most treasures and spirit plants. Although the other big countries also had similar cities for warriors, they were still not as good as the martial city. Mid-rank great weapon, light spear, obtained from the Blood Demon battlefield in the Star Region Lake. The starting price is 30,000 mid-rank soul stones. The highest bidder wins. Once he entered the trading palace, Yi Chun saw someone selling a mid-rank great weapon. It was a long spear with a colorful light. The tip of the spear was shining with a cold light, giving people a feeling that it was indestructible. It was definitely one of the top mid-rank great weapons. What? A mid-rank great weapon? Let's go check it out. How could the things from the Blood Demon battlefield be bad? That place is full of danger and opportunities. There are unimaginable treasures there. The seller yelled out casually. Immediately, 4 to 5 astral-reaching realm warriors surrounded him. Blood Demon battlefield. Yi Chun had heard about the Blood Demon battlefield before. It was said that it was just like the Heavenly Dream ancient region, which had existed since the ancient era. There were a lot of blood demons inside, which were divided into low-rank blood demons, low-rank blood demons, middle-rank blood demons, top-rank blood demons, and the extremely horrifying blood demon generals and blood demon kings. Blood Demon battlefield was more like a small space than a battlefield. Of course, this small space was way bigger than the Heavenly Dream ancient region, and it was divided into 2 layers. The first layer was for low-rank blood demons and middle-rank blood demons, while the second layer was for mid-rank blood demons and top-rank blood demons. Although it is a bit troublesome, after I reach the astral-reaching realm, I will still need to change my Star Scar sword. Blood Demon battlefield will be my second destination. After making up his mind, Yi Chun decided to go to the Blood Demon battlefield to find a mid-rank great sword. A mid-rank great sword would be able to increase the attacking power by 30 to 40%, which was a must-have for all astral-reaching realm sword artists. The trading palace was huge. It was miles in radius, almost as big as a small town. It's an alchemist. Arriving at the center of the trading hall, Yi Chun's gaze landed on a white-bearded old man. The old man was dressed in a long robe that had an alchemy cauldron embroidered on it. With a single glance, one could tell that it was the unique clothing of an alchemist. In front of him, there was a crystal counter with all sorts of pills on it. There were pills to recover Zhen Yuan, pills to mend meridians, pills to speed up the recovery of Zhen Yuan, and there was even a thumb-sized unknown pill that shone with starlight. There were quite a lot of astral-reaching realm warriors in front of the crystal counter. They were all very respectful, not daring to make any noise. From this, one could tell that this alchemist in his 60s was not a simple person. Pill Elder, give me a bottle of miraculous spirit pills for repairing meridians. Pill Elder, I still owe you 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones from last time. I'll pay you back in one lump sum. As they spoke, Yi Chun walked over. Is this the Earth Star pill? Yi Chen pointed at the thumb-sized pill on the crystal counter and asked. The old man nodded. Indeed. The Earth Star pill can increase the cultivation of astral-reaching realm warriors, but it cannot help them make a breakthrough. Little friend, do you want to buy it? Yi Chen looked at the price. 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones for one was indeed expensive, but he did not care. In this world where power was everything, everything had to be for the sake of improving one's power. Give me 5 of them, and 2 bottles of each of the other 3 types of pills. The pill elder was a bit surprised. Seeing that Yi Chen was so young, he seemed to be quite rich. With all these pills added together, it would be more than 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Of course, the more pills Yi Chen bought, the happier he would be. He smiled and said, 5 Earth Star pills would be 5,000 mid-grade spirit stones. 2 bottles of 7-star pills, for recovering Zhen Yuan, would be 1,200 mid-grade spirit stones. 2 bottles of miraculous spirit pills, for accelerating Zhen Yuan recovery, would be 1,500 mid-grade spirit stones. And 2 bottles of miraculous spirit pills, for repairing meridians would be 3,000 mid-grade spirit stones. In total, it would be 10,700 mid-grade spirit stones. Little friend, since this is your first time here, I won't take the 700 mid-grade spirit stones. Just 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones would be enough. Alright, here you go. Yi Chen took out a box filled with mid-grade spirit stones from his storage ring and placed it on the floor in front of the pill elder. After the transaction, Yi Chen walked around for a bit. Seeing that there was nothing else that caught his eye, he left the trading palace and came to the training room lobby inside the city. In front of the platform was still the beautiful lady. It was her first time seeing such a young astral-reaching realm warrior. She felt that he looked familiar, but she was not sure. She said with respect, "Excuse me, would you like a high-rank training room or a top-rank training room?" The training rooms were divided into 4 ranks: low rank, mid-rank, high rank, and top rank. Among them, only astral-reaching realm warriors had the right to use the high rank and top rank. Below the astral-reaching realm, no matter how many spirit stones one had, one would not be able to go in and train. This was the rule of the martial city. Yi Chen said, "How much for a top-rank training room?" The top-rank training room would cost 30,000 low-rank spirit stones a day. If you pay with mid-rank spirit stones, it would be 500. The lady answered honestly, "Pay the low-rank spirit stones. These are the spirit stones for 3 days." Yi Chen thought about it and decided to pay the low-rank spirit stones. Although paying with mid-rank spirit stones seemed a bit cheaper, since 500 mid-rank spirit stones were equivalent to 25,000 low-rank spirit stones. For him, there were not many opportunities for him to use low-rank spirit stones. Mid-rank spirit stones were very useful. Sometimes, 50 low-rank spirit stones might not even be enough for 1 mid-rank spirit stone. Of course, for most of the astral-reaching realm warriors, Yi Chen's mid-rank spirit stones were shocking. After killing 5 astral-reaching realm warriors, he had gotten 100,000 mid-rank spirit stones. Adding his own, he had 160,000 mid-rank spirit stones in total. He had just spent 10,000 on the pellets, so he still had 150,000 left. In comparison, Yi Chen had even more low-rank spirit stones, which were piled up like a mountain. He had gotten more than 1 million low-rank spirit stones from the 5 astral-reaching realm warriors. Adding his own, it had reached 3,500,000. It was a frightening amount of wealth, even richer than a rank 9 martial school, and comparable to some of the weaker rank 8 martial schools. Taking the jade tag, Yi Chen was led to the training room area in the back by the attendant. 30,000 low-rank spirit stones a day. That would be 300,000 low-rank spirit stones in 10 days. This training room is quite profitable. While thinking, Yi Chen arrived outside a courtyard. This is the 3rd top-ranked training room. Sir, please come in. The attendant opened the door for Yi Chen and bowed respectfully. Yi Chen nodded and took out 30 low-rank spirit stones, throwing them to the attendant. "This is your tip." "Thank you." The attendant was very excited. The top-ranked training room was a bit wider than the mid-ranked training room. Once he entered, Yi Chen could feel the temperature around him rising. However, Staying inside did not make him feel hot at all. On the contrary, his body felt very warm, and his slowly circulating Zhen Yuan started to boil. As his soul power spread out, Yichen could see the value of the top-ranked training room. The qi rising from the ground was not light red, but dark red, which was way more than the mid-ranked training room. The materials on the walls were not simple either. Once the dark red qi touched it, it bounced back immediately, moving closer to the center of the training room, forming an extremely dense spherical area. The fire qi of the earth evil Zhen qi is more than 10 times denser than the mid-ranked training room. It is indeed a top-ranked training room. I wonder what it would be like to train near the earth evil Zhen fire. Slowly letting out a breath, Yichen sat on the cushion in the middle of the training room with his eyes slightly closed, entering the training mode. After a while he opened his eyes. It seems like I only need one earth astral pellet. I was already not far from the peak level early astral reaching realm. Combined with this top-ranked training room, it would be much easier. Taking out the thumb-sized earth astral pellet, Yichen stuffed it into his mouth. 3 days later, Yichen had reached the peak level early astral reaching realm as he wished. His Zhen Yuan was 50% denser than 3 days ago, but the purity did not increase much, since the purity would increase along with the realm. Going from the early astral reaching realm to the peak level did not count as a realm increase. The earth astral pellet is indeed mysterious. Besides not being able to help me make a breakthrough, it has a huge effect on increasing my cultivation, saving me a lot of time. Continuing to train was already useless, since reaching the mid-astral reaching realm was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Next, Yichen's target was the sword intent. The training field of the top-ranked training room was extremely vast. From east to west, it was 300 to 400 meters long, which was much bigger than a big family's yard. Absorbing the sword intent from the sword-shaped plant, Yichen held the broken battle emperor's sword and threw out a sword attack onto the training column in front of him. Swoosh! The material of the training column was close to a low-rank great weapon, and it only left a 3-inch deep sword mark. The immortal sword intent spread out with the sword mark as the center. The good thing was that it was not too wide, and it did not go beyond the training field. Otherwise it would cause some trouble. Being covered by the sword intent, Yichen calmed himself down and started to train. Soon half a month had passed. Yichen opened his eyes. Just as I expected, the closer I am to the completion, the harder it is to train. During this half a month, I have used up 8 sword-shaped plants in total, but it only increased my sword intent from 93% to 95%. I wonder how many sword-shaped plants I will need to fill up the remaining gap. Without much hesitation, Yichen continued to take out the sword-shaped plants. 7 days passed. There are only 2 sword-shaped plants left. There is no chance for me to reach the completion. Forcing a smile, Yichen shook his head. Although he had prepared for it, the difficulty of training the sword intent was still beyond his expectation. No wonder the Sword Elder, who was one of the top 10 sword artists in the South Ridra region, was still stuck at 90% sword intent. He wondered who among the other 9 sword artists had reached the completion, and who had learned the completed sword intent. Only by reaching the completed sword intent would one be able to reach the higher realms. The last 2 sword-shaped plants had finally been used up. Right now, Yichen's sword intent had stopped at 97%, which was only a tiny bit away from the completion. And this tiny bit would take a lot of years to reach. But of course, Yichen's sword intent contained the immortal mentality, which could compete with the completed sword intent, which was his advantage. It is time to leave. Next stop, the Blood Demon battlefield in the Star Region Lake. After resting for a day, Yichen had stayed in the top-ranked training room for a whole month. He had paid 900,000 low-rank soul stones. But the good thing was that it was worth it. Right now, he only needed an opportunity to reach the mid-astral reaching realm. Chapter 330. How many days has it been since he left? Whistling Wind Restaurant was one of the top restaurants in Marshall City. In a private room on the 3rd floor, 7 or 8 astral reaching experts were sitting. The one leading them was floating mountain sect's core elder, Taoist Jin Huang. He wore a long gray robe with golden threads embroidered on the edges. At this moment, he glanced around and asked the astral reaching expert in front of him. 3 days. This person was one of the astral reaching experts following Yi Chen. Half a month ago, he found out that Yi Chen had arrived in Martial City and immediately sent a message to Taoist Jin Huang. Taoist Jin Huang's gaze turned cold. He didn't expect that Yi Chen would be so eager to die, choosing to leave Windy Nation right after entering astral reaching realm. However, it was exactly what he wanted. If Yi Chen had stayed in Windy Nation, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. The owner of the sky-covering hand was not someone he could contend with. Even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare to provoke the other party. The soul-chasing bird should have followed him. Yes, as long as the soul-chasing bird is here, even if that kid runs to the ends of the earth, he won't be able to escape from 6th Elder's pursuit. Taoist Jin Huang was ranked 6th among the core elders of Floating Mountain Sect. Therefore, everyone called him Elder Jin Huang or 6th Elder. Good, very good. This time, he won't be able to escape death. Taoist Jin Huang laughed loudly. The soul-chasing bird was a strange bird raised by Floating Mountain Sect. Although it was only the size of a palm, it had a speed of 1,000 meters per second. As long as it smelled one's aura, it would be able to sense one's existence within 100 li. With the soul-chasing bird following Yi Chen, the matter was already half done. The remaining half would be left to him. Thinking of this, Taoist Jin Huang felt extremely happy. Yi Chen was like a knot in his heart, a heart devil. If he didn't eliminate him, he would never be able to calm down and cultivate in seclusion. He was very clear that with Yi Chen's talent, given 3 to 5 years, he might truly become a threat to him. Therefore, he had to eliminate him as soon as possible. Fortunately, he wasn't far from his goal. Star Regional Lake. It was one of the top few super lakes in the True Spirit continent. Its surface area was even bigger than the Black Dragon Empire, the Ice Crystal Empire, and the Grey Mystery Nation combined. It extended all the way to the center of the Misty Snow region, bordering the Wavy Cloud region and the Thunder region. The Star Regional Lake had been an extremely mysterious place since the ancient times. There were a lot of forbidden places inside, some of which even Life and Death Realm warriors would not dare to underestimate. The Blood Demon battlefield was still within the South Ridra region. It was a small forbidden area at the edge of the Star Regional Lake. For clasping Yuan and astral reaching experts, the danger level was extremely high. Out of 3 people who entered, only 1 would be able to come out alive. Beneath the clouds, a streak of light streaked past. Taoist Jin Huang and I are irreconcilable. If he doesn't die, then I will. I don't want to go to the Wang family on the Snake Island. It will bring them a disaster. Let's go straight to the Blood Demon battlefield. Yi Chen originally wanted to go to the Snake Island and see what had happened to Wang's snake. But he immediately gave up on this idea. Before taking care of Taoist Jin Huang, it would be best not to meet anyone, unless that person's background and power were powerful enough. Amidst the boundless sky and water, Yi Chen increased his speed to 70%, flying toward the Bloodstone Islands that were hundreds of thousands of li away. Why do I feel like I'm being followed? Ever since leaving the Martial City, Yi Chen had felt that something was wrong. As for what exactly was wrong, he didn't know. But as time passed, this kind of suspicion grew deeper and deeper, lingering in his heart. Until now, he was sure that something had indeed happened to him. I'd like to see who's following me. Yi Chen suddenly turned around. The green lotus Zhen Yuan inside his body burned fiercely, exploding his speed to the limit as he sprinted in the opposite direction. Within a moment, he had reached an astonishing distance of more than 1,000 meters, leaving a faint black trail in the void. After sprinting for dozens of li, Yi Chen released his soul power, spreading it out in a fan shape, covering the entire area in front of him. It's a bird! Within his soul power perception, a palm-sized bird that seemed to be made of black iron appeared in his mind. The bird seemed to be a bit surprised by his sudden turnaround, and immediately flew in another direction like a black lightning bolt. Die! Yi Chen finally knew the reason. This black bird actually had the ability to follow his aura. It had been following him for dozens of li, which was a distance that he couldn't sense with his soul power. Fortunately, he suddenly had an idea. He suddenly turned around and increased his speed, shortening the distance. The Star Scar sword was unsheathed, and a circular sword chi sliced through the void. The sword chi's speed was much faster than the blackbird's flying speed. In a few breaths' time, it had caught up to the bird. The powerful sword pressure turned the entire area into a vacuum world. Then, the sword chi flickered and heavily slashed out. Crack! The blackbird's defense was not bad, but unfortunately, Yi Chen's attack was not something it could handle. Its feathers were shattered into pieces and were cut in half. Several hundred li away, an astral-reaching expert's complexion changed greatly. What? The soul-chasing bird has fallen? Who killed it? Could it be Yi Chen? Impossible. He absolutely couldn't sense the soul-chasing bird's existence. Perhaps it was killed by a passing expert. Damn it. This kid's luck is too good. He was the breeder of the soul-chasing bird, so he had a subtle connection with it. Therefore, as soon as the bird was in danger, he immediately knew. This place is less than 10,000 li away from the Blood Demon battlefield. If I'm not wrong, this kid is definitely going there to try his luck. Although the Blood Demon battlefield is extremely dangerous, it's hard to say if he can come out alive. I'd better go back and inform Elder Jin Huang first. Clenching his teeth, this person turned around and rushed in the direction of Martial City. After killing the black bird, the uneasiness lingering in his heart completely disappeared. Yi Chen creased his brows. It's most likely Taoist Jin Huang's doing. Alright, I can't wait for him to appear in front of me. At that time, I can thoroughly kill him and put an end to my heart demon. Yi Chen was Taoist Jin Huang's heart demon, and Taoist Jin Huang was also Yi Chen's heart demon. If the two wanted to continue advancing, they had to kill each other. One of them had to leave this world. The Blood Demon battlefield is also my battlefield. Letting out a heavy breath, Yi Chen's gaze turned cold as he once again flew in the direction of the Blood Demon battlefield. Bloodstone Islands, formed by a total of 36 islands, the majority of which were faintly blood-colored rocks. Therefore they were called Bloodstone Islands. Each of the islands had an ancient stone gate. Inside the gate was a blood-red whirlpool that was dozens of meters tall, emitting a soul-stirring aura. At this moment, numerous martial artists had gathered on each of the islands. Most of them were clasping Yuan realm martial artists, and astral-reaching realm experts only made up about 5%. At the same time, there were also many martial artists arriving from all directions, forming a dense black mass. His figure streaking across the horizon, Yi Chen landed on the third island. He raised his head and saw many people entering the blood-red whirlpool, disappearing without a trace. Chapter 331. The number of martial artists on the third island reached several hundred. Some were waiting for people, some were forming teams, and some had just come out of Blood Demon battlefield. They were narrating what had happened inside. Did you know? Mountain Splitter died in the second layer of Blood Demon battlefield. What? It can't be. Mountain Splitter is a late astral-reaching expert. Although his Mountain Splitter palm is a high-rank Earth-grade palm art, the power of its mentality is extremely rare. Even peak late astral-reaching experts don't dare to provoke him. How could he die in the second layer? How could this be fake? I saw a high-ranked blood demon pass through his body with my own eyes, taking away all of his blood chi. Then, the blood demon turned into a pile of human skin and fell to the ground. Fortunately, I reacted quickly and ran away. That was how I managed to get out of the second floor. 2 deaths in 1 life. This blood demon battlefield is worthy of being one of the minor forbidden zones. Even someone as powerful as Mountain Splitter died just like that. Sigh. Treasures are not that easy to obtain. One has to risk their life for it. In South Ridra region, astral-reaching experts with mid-grade artifacts were few and far between. Everyone knew that mid-grade artifacts could be obtained in the Blood Demon battlefield, but those who were truly determined to enter were few and far between. After all, they only had 1 life. If they died, they would truly die. No matter how many treasures they had, what use would it be? Generally speaking, There were three kinds of people who dared to enter the blood demon battlefield. The first kind were those who possessed exceedingly high strength and didn't fear any environment. The second kind were those who were willing to take risks for the sake of increasing their strength. These kinds of people were few and far between. The last kind were those who dared to enter for the sake of vengeance. Seriously speaking, Yi Chen belonged to both the first and the second type. In terms of strength, apart from his slightly lacking cultivation base, he was at the peak in every aspect. All in all, his battle strength could be considered extremely powerful. Moreover, it could rise crazily at any time. In terms of mental quality, sword artists who comprehended sword intent always had a higher mental quality than other martial artists. Yi Chen was very clear that taking risks was necessary. Without experiencing 9 deaths and 1 life, the chances of stepping into life and death realm were minuscule. Life and death, these two words had too many meanings. The same teleportation whirlpool. Clasping Yuan martial artists would be teleported to the first layer of blood demon battlefield, while astral reaching experts would be teleported to the second layer. This should be differentiated by aura. I wonder where I would be teleported to. Swish! Taking a step forward, Yi Chen plunged into the blood-red vortex. Several 100,000 kilometers away from the blood demon battlefield. Soul-chasing bird is dead? Hearing his subordinates report, Taoist Jin Huang's expression turned ugly. A murderous aura filled his face, making him look hideous and terrifying. Cold sweat dripped down the forehead of the astral-reaching expert who raised the soul-chasing bird. He promptly said, "Sixth Elder, rest assured. When the soul-chasing bird died, that kid was less than 10,000 li away from the blood demon battlefield. This subordinate is 80% certain that he went there in search of treasures. The blood demon battlefield. Look for the treasure. In the hands of an astral-reaching expert, a low-grade artifact will be damaged after being used for a long time. Especially in a confrontation with an expert, the chances of a low-grade artifact being damaged are even higher. In this case, he must get a mid-grade artifact. Otherwise, a sword artist would lose their weapon, and their battle power would be greatly reduced by at least 30%. However, with a mid-grade artifact, not only would he not have to worry about his weapon being damaged, his attack power would also increase by 30 to 40%. This is an irresistible temptation. You've done well. Taoist Jin Huang's mood turned for the better. Letting out a sigh, the astral-reaching expert who raised the soul-chasing bird cautiously said, "Sixth Elder, there's no time to lose. Let's enter the blood demon battlefield together and kill him." That's natural. However, just in case, you guys assign people to guard the Bloodstone Islands. Elder Rock, and I will go in. Taoist Jin Huang was afraid that he wouldn't be able to find Yi Chen after entering the blood demon battlefield, so he let him slip out. As for Elder Rock, he was his assistant and had a similar cultivation base as him. With him by his side, killing Yi Chen would be as easy as flipping his hand. Yes, a blood-red whirlpool suddenly appeared, and a blue silhouette shot out from within. Its sharp aura was like an unsheathed sword, cutting through the void. Fortunately, there's no danger. Yi Chen had heard more than once that some people, upon entering the blood demon battlefield, would be directly teleported to an area denser with blood demons. As soon as they appeared, they would be devoured cleanly by the blood demons. It was a tragic sight to behold. Therefore, when teleporting, he was already prepared to ignite his green lotus Zhen Yuan in an instant. With his feet firmly planted on the ground, Yi Chen looked around. This is the second layer of the blood demon battlefield. Blood-colored clouds, dark light, black and red mountain ranges, light red water, grass, trees, and the like. The boundless second layer of the blood demon battlefield was like an extremely desolate world. It was shrouded in a stifling atmosphere and indescribable panic. Zhen Yuan is being suppressed a bit. Circulating his Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen discovered that his originally flowing Zhen Yuan was a bit sluggish. This kind of sluggishness couldn't be discovered without careful observation. Only Yi Chen, who had a powerful soul power, could instantly discover that something was wrong. Others didn't notice anything at first. Yi Chen's brows slightly creased. Don't look down on this little bit of suppression. It might not have any effect on you at your peak, but once you're exhausted, this little bit of suppression would be like the last straw on a camel's back. It was enough to crush you. Seems like this world is indeed suitable for blood demons to live in. It won't be easy for human martial artists to survive here. Tightening the star-scar sword on his waist, Yichen picked a direction and walked. He was currently in a mound. Walking out of the mound, he saw a black and red stone ridge. After walking a few steps, Yichen saw a dried-up human skin. An eerie aura lingered on it, as if a soul was crying. This is a good place. In this kind of eerie and frightening environment, my will would definitely be tempered. The stronger the will, the more powerful my sword intent would be. It would be inextinguishable. Turning a blind eye to his surroundings, Yichen straightened his back and walked forward step by step. Swish! A blood color suddenly seeped out from the rocks on the side. A blood light with distorted facial features darted out, sweeping towards Yichen, who was right in front of it. Break! This was only a mid-rank blood demon, which was equivalent to a clasping Yuan realm martial artist. Yichen didn't take out his sword. Instead, he clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out with the 5-mountain condensing form. Pung! The air vibrated. The 5-mountain godly fist's momentum was extremely heavy. As the fist punched out, the air became sticky like water, restricting the speed of the mid-rank blood demon. It was immediately crushed into pieces by the fist power, exploding with a bang and filling the air with a blood mist. This blood demon is really strange. It doesn't have a concrete body, but it can hide inside rocks and other objects. Its aura concealing ability is quite high. After killing a mid-rank blood demon, Yichen didn't stop. His soul power spread out like a net, sensing the aura ripples of treasures. The stone ridge was huge, much bigger than ordinary large mountain ranges. After an hour, Yichen finally sensed a trace of treasure aura ripples. However, there were also astral-reaching experts Zhen Yuan ripples. The ripples were rather chaotic, probably due to an intense battle. Let's go take a look. Circulating green lotus Zhen Yuan, Yichen instantly turned into a beam of light. His speed rapidly soared, soon reaching 2 times the speed of sound. In 10 blinks of an eye, Yichen landed on a low mountain peak. Looking down, he saw 2 astral-reaching experts teaming up against a high-rank blood demon. Chi energies shot out in all directions, flattening the nearby rocks and earth. A man and a woman, a high-rank blood demon, and a mid-grade artifact beside it. Yichen thought of countless possibilities. One of them was that these 2 astral-reaching experts had sensed the aura ripples of treasures and arrived here, only to be targeted by a high-rank blood demon. The man was at the peak of mid-astral-reaching realm, while the woman was at mid-astral-reaching realm. Moreover, this high-rank blood demon couldn't be considered a peak one. It couldn't do anything to them for the time being. Brother Liao, there's someone up there. The female astral-reaching expert shot a glance at Yichen's location and said with a frown. The male astral-reaching expert forced back the high-rank blood demon with a blade strike, then said, "Don't mind him. This high-rank blood demon is troublesome. Don't let it approach." The pressure on the 2 increased greatly. Those who chose to enter the blood demon battlefield weren't good people. Sometimes, the threat from human experts was even more frightening than high-rank blood demons. At least, everyone knew that high-rank blood demons were enemies, while human experts could turn friends into enemies in an instant. The number of human experts who had died at the hands of the 2 was not few. However, they couldn't free themselves at the moment. Swish! All of a sudden, the high-rank blood demon abandoned its fight with the 2 and shot in Yichen's direction. In its opinion, Yichen's Zhen Yuan ripples were clearly weaker than the 2's. He should be easy to deal with. The man and the woman who picked up the mid-grade artifact exchanged a glance. They were husband and wife, and rarely had a falling out. They were no exception. At this moment the 2 had the same thought. With Yichen's death, the storage ring would belong to them. They were well aware of how frightening high-rank blood demons were. On the low mountain peak, Yichen sneered. "Hee, it's been a long time since I've tasted the flesh and blood of human experts." The high-rank blood demon turned into a beam of crimson blood light and pierced forward. Its speed was much faster than a mid-astral reaching expert. When the 2 were 10 meters apart, Yi Chen's sword left its sheath. The blue sword light was engraved with a sky-opening lotus, as it cleaved apart the high-rank blood demon. What? So powerful? Not only were the two startled, but the high-rank blood demon was even more astonished. Its two halves quickly wriggled, continuing to attack Yi Chen from the left and right. Chi 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 chi, countless sword lights crisscrossed, forming a sword net. The moment the blood demon's two blood lights came into contact, they were shattered into pieces. Their intelligence scattered, and they quickly disappeared. Not good. Run. This person is an expert. The man pulled the woman's hand and fled into the distance, fearing that Yi Chen would catch up and kill them. Yi Chen faintly smiled. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Under normal circumstances he wouldn't kill. He could understand the two's actions. In the blood demon battlefield, everyone was extremely vigilant. Those who weren't vigilant had long since become nourishment for the blood demons. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.